Bill Gates has been a busy man these past couple of years, from dealing with the pandemic to, unfortunately, having a divorce, and on a lighter note, picking up a shift with Warren Buffett at Dairy Queen. However, he's also made some interesting moves in the investing world, and that's where nerds like myself become interested. What has he been doing, and what does he own? So in this video, I want to go over his portfolio and let's see where Gates has all of his money invested in this year. So Gates' net worth at the time of making this video, it will fluctuate, but it's $132 billion. Now I've just spent the past couple of hours trying to figure out exactly where this money is invested in. Bill Gates, he doesn't have to disclose every dollar that he has invested, so some areas we just will never know, but there is a lot that he publicly has to disclose. So let's take a look at all of that. So first and foremost, we'll start with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. With this foundation, they have to disclose each stock that they own, so it's going to give us an interesting idea on where Gates invests his money. Number one stock position, I'm sure some of you may have the exact same stock in your portfolio, and that's Berkshire Hathaway, Class B shares to be exact. So Berkshire makes up 45.5% of the overall portfolio, worth $10.56 billion in total. Obviously, Berkshire, that's the company run by Bill Gates' good old mate, Warren Buffett. Essentially, it's a holding company that invests in a range of different businesses, and most of these businesses are chosen by the man himself, Mr. Buffett. So through owning Berkshire, Gates is immediately exposed to big name companies like Apple, Bank of America, Coca-Cola, General Motors, Geico, Dairy Queen, and all of the other fantastic investments picked out by the Oracle of Omaha. Second largest stock in the portfolio is Waste Management. Gates has a cheeky 18.6 million shares in this company, valued at $2.78 billion. That makes up 12% of the portfolio. Now before we go any further, I just want to acknowledge that Michael Larson does a lot of these investments. Michael Larson, he's Bill Gates' head investor of the fund. He started investing for Gates back in 1993-94, and he continues to do so to this day. But Waste Management, it's a pretty easy company to get our head around. They manage waste in North America. They have 293 landfill disposal sites, 146 recycling plants, and 111 beneficial use landfill gas projects. The price of the stock has been trotting along quite nicely over the years. It sells for $146 per share. PE ratio is 34, which tells you what type of market we are in. We're in a very pricey one, and they do pay a nice dividend of 1.8%. I've always liked this stock as a nice ethical investment play. Caterpillar comes in at number 3 for the portfolio. The trend that we should start to notice is that Gates, he loves the value plays. He's not risking any money in some high growth tech companies. No, he just buys the conservative stocks that are generating cash flow. Caterpillar makes up 8% of the portfolio, worth $1.86 billion. Of course, it's the company that makes all of that machinery and heavy equipment. It's actually the world's largest construction equipment manufacturer. The stock has some nice numbers associated with it. So the price per share is $201. PE ratio is pretty nice in this current market of 17, and the dividend yield is 2.2%. Bill Gates also has a big stake in Canadian National Railway. He's actually the largest single shareholder in the company. He owns 30 million shares in CN, valued at $1.5 billion, contributing to 6.5% of the portfolio. All of the Canadians out there, you probably know about the National Railway, or at least have a lot to thank for it. It's the largest railway in Canada. It has 24,000 employees, 20,000 miles of track, delivering almost everything ranging from food and beverages to metals and minerals. So it's a company that is very busy in the Canadian economy. Walmart, the fifth largest stock in the Bill and Melinda Gates Trust. It's worth 4.16% of the portfolio, valued at $965 million. Again, it's a conservative stock, it's got a proven stable business model, and it's a pretty safe place for Bill Gates to put the trust nest egg in. Walmart, I don't need to tell you what they do, we all know what they do. Ecolab comes in at the sixth largest position for Gates' trust. Essentially, it's a water purification and treatment company. And I know Bill Gates is someone who does get a lot of hate at times, but I do like the fact that he puts his money into the companies that look to do good in the world. We can't deny that Waste Management and Ecolab are companies that add value to society. So Ecolab is worth 3.93% of the portfolio with a value of a small $910 million. So maybe it's small for Bill Gates, not quite so much for everyone else. Seventh largest position is actually Microsoft, bit of a twist there. Obviously Microsoft is the company that Bill Gates founded and built his fortune upon. It's worth 3.57% of the trust at $828 million. Microsoft's share price is $300 per share. Their market cap is $2.2 trillion. I remember back in the day when a company first reached $1 trillion and it was crazy. So that makes it the second largest company in the world behind Apple. They earn $9.30 per share and they pay a bit of a dividend of 0.8%. Gates also owns a good percentage in Crown Castle. This is the company that builds the infrastructure for the internet and cell network. This is quite a smart investment by Gates. We all know how important the internet is to modern day society. So if you own the infrastructure behind the internet, well, you're in a very strong position when it comes to business. And then rounding up the top 10 largest positions for Gates' trust is Kansas City Southern at number 9. This is the freight rail transportation business that makes up 2.56% of the portfolio. And 10 is UPS, the shipping company, worth 1.79% of the portfolio. So those top 10 positions that we've just gone over, they make up 91.49% of the overall portfolio. The other 8.5% include stocks like Coca-Cola FEMSA, that's kind of like Mexico's Coca-Cola, Schrödinger, the life science company, Deere & Co. This was a recent buy for Gates last year, that's the heavy equipment company, FedEx, Kalpang, and even a little bit of Google round up the smaller positions in the portfolio. The rest are very minute positions, well under 1%. Now, another thing that I like to ask is, how do these billionaires balance their portfolio? One of the biggest questions in finance today is how much cash should we keep on the sidelines compared to how much we have in the market? And when I was researching into what Bill Gates does, it seems he takes more of a defensive approach to the game. According to data from Bloomberg Billionaires Index, the tech billionaire has $56.7 billion of cash in the bank. So that means he has around 43% in cash. So for me, that's pretty defensive. Gates, he thinks a little differently to me. He said back in 2019, we're not, in some defensive posture where we're mostly in cash. The strategy that's being used on the investments is to be over 60% in equities. You can make the case that the stock market yields aren't very high right now, but that's true against all asset classes. 10-year T-bills are well less than 2% yields. Essentially, he's saying, yes, stock market prices are high right now, however, stocks are still the clear better option to be invested in compared to other assets. Either way, 60% in stocks, 40% in cash seems to be the balance that he likes. So we've just gone over the portfolio at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Trust, as well as how much he has in cash. However, don't forget that the majority of his net worth is held by his personal investing company, Cascade Investments. This too is run by the same investor who runs the trust, Michael Larson. Unfortunately for us, it is not a public company, so most of his investments he does not have to disclose to the SEC. But because it is run by the same investor, my guess is that it's probably got quite a few similar investments to the trust. And some of the investments in Cascade he does have to disclose, which proves me right. We know that he owns 47% of Four Seasons hotels and resorts. He also owns Beyond Meat, the plant-based meat company. And he owns Ecolab, Canadian National Railway, FEMSA, Deere Company, and Berkshire Hathaway, which are all companies in the trust portfolio that we just went over. Then don't forget that Gates personally is still a large shareholder in Microsoft. William H. Gates owns 1.38% of the total Microsoft shares. That's 103.4 million shares worth $31.15 billion. So Microsoft still accounts for a significant portion of his net worth. Now, another interesting investment that Bill Gates put a chunk of his money into recently was farmland. I'm not sure if you remember reading the headlines, but Bill Gates is now the largest private owner of farmland in the US. So in total, Gates owns approximately 242,000 acres of farmland with assets totaling more than $690 million. To put that into perspective, that's nearly the size of Hong Kong that he owns. And just thinking about it myself, when I look into the future, I struggle to see an investment in farmland going wrong. We always need to eat at the end of the day, no matter how deep we are in the metaverse. So I think farms will work out well for him. Also, we can't forget all of the fun investments that Gates owns as well. These all build into his portfolio as relatively minor positions. He's got some lovely pieces of real estate across the country. He has a home in Seattle worth $154 million with every high-tech thing that you can think of. In 2016, Gates bought 5 properties in Wellington, Florida for a cheeky $35.6 million and a nice horse farm for $21 million in 2019 to round it up. He also reportedly owns an island called Grand Bouquet, which is worth upward of $25 million. Then he has a nice collection of jets and cars. He owns 2 Bombardier Express jets and a fractional share in at least 1 NetJets plane. Gates has a Porsche 911, a Porsche 930 Turbo, a rare Porsche 959, and a fully electric Porsche Taycan. So I guess he likes his Porsches. He also has some collectibles. This includes Leonardo da Vinci's manuscript, bought for $30.8 million. Frederick Hassam's work, Room of Flowers, for $20 million. Winslow's Lost on the Grand Banks for $36 million. And George Bellow's Polo Crowd for $28 million in 1999. I guess when you're that rich, you can just buy what the heck you want. Maybe, who knows, one day Gates might even buy some expensive NFTs in the future. Anyway, so that's going to give you an idea of how Bill Gates is positioned with his investments in 2022. The real estate and all of those fun investments are minor. The important ones are the conservative value stocks that he owns, the amount of cash that he has on the sidelines, and also the farmland that he's acquired lately.